A woman stood beneath the glow of a flickering street lamp, waiting for the bus with a box of scraps pressed tight to her chest. From the back window of a luxury black sedan, Marshall Grant watched her. The drizzle didn't touch her. She was already soaked from hours at the sink. Her name was Lena Moretti, though few at Sterling Heights ever used it. Most just called her the cleaner, or worse, pretended she wasn't there at all. It had started 3 weeks earlier, when Marshall stayed late to finalize acquisition documents with his legal team. As CEO of one of the most exclusive restaurant groups in the state, he rarely interacted with hourly staff. But that evening, as he stepped out to his waiting car, he noticed her. She stood by the dumpsters speaking softly with the night cook. The conversation wasn't clear, but the motion was unmistakable. Lena was asking for leftovers, and the cook, half sympathetic, half dismissing, handed her a single clamshell container. Marshall didn't say a word. He got in the car, but he didn't leave. The following night, it happened again. Lena exited out the service door at 11:34 p.m., sharp her hair pulled back into a fraying bun, her uniform damp at the hem. She clutched the container with both hands and moved swiftly as if ashamed of being seen. By the third night, Marshall couldn't ignore it. He gave instructions to his driver to park 2 blocks away. He stepped out into the damp night himself, keeping to the shadows like a man trailing a ghost. He didn't know why he cared. Maybe it was her posture, not of desperation, but of restraint, like someone who'd run out of options long ago, but refused to scream. That's when he noticed the pattern. Lena always left through the back exit, always carried the food in the same stained tote, and always boarded the 11:50 p.m. bus from Harrison Avenue, a crowded, rumbling beast of public transit that smelled of old vinyl and damp coats. Inside, Lena took the same seat, third from the front window side. Never looked up. Her eyes were always down, tracing the cracks in her knuckles. One Thursday, as the rain thickened, Marshall followed the bus in his Escalade. It made 11 stops, grinding through the heart of downtown, past closed factories and graffiti-covered lots. When Lena stepped off near 14th and Baker Marshall pulled into a side alley, there were no streetlights here, just the pale green flicker of apartment buzzers and the orange hum of faulty power lines. Lena walked fast, but someone was waiting. A man stumbled out from the side of a stairwell, tall, rail-thin, with a bottle in one hand and the other outstretched. "Give it up, Lena. You know you owe me." The voice was slurred but aggressive. Marshall tensed behind the wheel. "That food's for my girls, Steve. Please. Not tonight." "Since when do I care? I saw you come home late again. You're holding out." "I'm not. I swear I'm not." He lunged forward, snatching the tote. It ripped open on the concrete, the box tumbling to the ground, spilling rice and a piece of roasted chicken. Marshall's door was half open. His foot hovered over the pavement. But Lena, without flinching, shoved Steve backward with both hands. He stumbled, landed hard against a rusted fire escape, and groaned. I said no. She didn't look back. She gathered the container, now cracked food soaked into the paper napkins, and ran into the building. The door slammed behind her. Marshall didn't move for a long time. Later, he parked a block away and made his way on foot. The building was 4 stories, paint, flaking windows patched with cardboard. He found the unit easily. It was the only one with a soft yellow glow. Through a gap in the torn curtain, he saw them. 2 little girls, maybe 5 and 7, sat cross-legged on a mattress, their hair braided unevenly. Lena was spooning food into their mouths. Her own plate sat untouched. The younger one coughed violently. Not a simple cold. It was the ragged wheeze of untreated asthma. Lena reached for a plastic inhaler that looked nearly empty. Marshall stood in the shadows as sirens passed distantly behind him. The city breathed around him, but the room in front of him was frozen in time. He returned to his car, soaked, shaken. That night he didn't sleep. Instead, he found himself unlocking a dusty box from his closet. Inside was an old ID badge from a soup kitchen in Camden. His name barely legible beneath the faded print volunteer, Marshall G. A folded note from his mother lay beneath it, one he hadn't read in years. Don't ever forget what it feels like to be overlooked. The next morning he arrived at Sterling Heights at 7:00 a.m. sharp. He called his director of operations into the office. I want an immediate wage audit, floor staff and janitorial. Bring me the numbers. Excuse me, and I want performance reviews. I want to know who's actually keeping this place clean, who shows up, who works the double shifts, especially one of the night cleaners. Lena Moretti. There was a pause. There have been rumors, sir, that she's borrowing supplies. Maybe food. We haven't caught her, but the staff talk. I want facts, not gossip. And from now on, if there's excess food, it gets packed and logged. Anyone who needs to take it home can request it officially. Understand, yes, Mr. Grant. But Marshall saw it in his eyes, the reluctance, the judgment. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. She's not the problem. We are. The following evening, Lena entered the staff lounge 10 minutes before her shift. The chairs were mismatched, the coffee maker stained from years of neglect, and the microwave door hung slightly crooked. She sat by the window as she always did, folding her sandwich wrapper neatly into a square. A murmur followed her, barely audible but sharp enough to sting. That's her, the one who begs for scraps. Is she still here? I thought HR was looking into it. Lena kept her eyes on her hands. The head janitor Ray passed by with a clipboard. He didn't speak, didn't nod, just walked past as though she weren't there at all. It wasn't always like this. A few months ago, she shared jokes with the kitchen team, laughed over spilled mop water. But the whispers changed everything. Ever since that night, Steve followed her back to work and made a scene in the parking lot. People had drawn their lines. And tonight, something was different. The schedule had been rearranged. Her section had doubled. No explanation. She didn't complain. Downstairs, Marshall Grant sat in his corner office, a cappuccino untouched on his desk. He watched the security feed in silence. Lena moved through the dining hall like vapor, present but unnoticed. She wiped each chair leg, straightened menus, picked up a dropped knife without breaking rhythm. He made notes, handwritten, resilience under duress, quiet efficiency, emotional discipline. At 8:15, he called Amelia Cho, head of human resources. I want to know how we evaluate frontline staff. What systems are in place for recognizing people who aren't in management? Am I hearing this right, sir? You are. We've got a quarterly review system, mostly for compliance. The lower tier roles don't always get individual feedback unless there's an incident. Change that. I want Lena Moretti evaluated independently. Pull her timesheets, client notes, see if we've had any complaints. If not, draft a new tier for frontline excellence recognition. I want it formal. Sir, are we elevating a janitor? We're recognizing discipline. That should transcend job title. Amelia hesitated. Then, we'll need to justify the cost, especially if this triggers more staff asking for wage reviews. Then justify it. Marshall clicked the receiver off before she could protest further. Back in the staff locker room, Lena opened her metal cubby. A note was tucked inside. Please report to floor 2, Conference B at 10:30 p.m. HR review. M. Grant. Her stomach dropped. Conference room B had never been used for anything but shareholder meetings. It still had the old mahogany table from the original Sterling Heights boardroom. She hadn't stepped foot in it since the day she was hired. By 10:28 p.m., she was there standing rigid by the door, her hair damp from sweat. When Marshall walked in alone, Lena flinched. "You wanted to see me, yes. Sit down." "I swear I didn't take anything, sir. If this is about the food, it was always leftover. I always asked. I never hid it." He held up a hand. "I know. I watched you." That silenced her. "I followed you one night. Saw where you live. Saw what you're dealing with. You followed me, I did. You don't need to be afraid." Lena stood. Her voice trembled. "That's a violation. I don't need your pity." "It's not pity. It's context. You're doing 3 people's jobs while raising 2 children alone in conditions most executives couldn't survive a day in. I needed to see it for myself. And I need this company to see it too." Lena sat back down slowly. "I'm not a case. I'm not a lesson. I'm just trying to survive." Marshall nodded. "I know that feeling better than you think." There was a pause. The hum of the air conditioner. The tick of a wall clock Marshall hadn't heard in years. He opened a folder. "Effective tomorrow, your title will be Facilities Assistant Supervisor. It comes with benefits, medical coverage for dependents, and an additional monthly housing stipend." Lena's mouth opened, but nothing came. "This is not a favor. It's overdue recognition. And if you don't want the job, I'll find another way to offer you security." "Why?" "Because I failed someone once. Someone like you. I won't do it again." Lena looked down at her hands. She hadn't painted her nails in years, hadn't worn perfume, hadn't looked anyone in the eye with certainty since her youngest daughter was born in that overcrowded emergency room. "My ex-husband still knows where we live. We're handling that too. Legal will work with you to file for protective orders." Quietly. No press, no exposure, just distance. Her breath caught in her throat. "And the rumors, I'll handle the board. You handle the work." Lena stood up, slowly steadied herself. "Then I'll take the job. But not because I need saving. Because I need to show my daughters that no one gets to write our worth for us." Marshall smiled, small but sincere. "That's exactly the reason I hoped you'd say yes." Outside the conference room, Amelia waited with a packet in hand. Her expression was unreadable. As Lena signed the acknowledgement forms, she felt her shoulders shift as if she'd been carrying a weight she'd forgotten she held. And yet she also knew something else. Nothing would be easy from here on out. Promotions paint targets, but for the first time in years, she wasn't hiding in the shadows. She was stepping forward. The morning after her promotion, Lena entered the restaurant through the front door for the first time in her life. The glass spun inward under her hand, quiet and weightless, as if welcoming someone new. A manager at the host stand raised an eyebrow. "Morning. You lost?" "No, I'm Facilities Assistant Supervisor now." The words came out steadier than she expected. The manager's eyes flickered to her ID badge, temporary printed on plain paper, but clipped to her chest like armor. "Right. Congratulations, I guess." The awkward pause hung there before the man turned back to his iPad, checking dinner reservations. Lena walked past the velvet rope and into the heart of the place that had ignored her for years. The dining hall looked different in daylight. Sunlight streaked across the polished floors she'd mopped 1,000 times in silence. The chandeliers no longer shimmered seductively, but revealed their dust in full bloom. She noticed the scuff marks along the corners, the uneven seams in the leather booths. Things she always saw but was never allowed to report. That day, she clocked in, not with a punch card, but with a code. She reviewed floor maintenance schedules, adjusted deliveries, and coordinated a misaligned garbage pickup with city sanitation. A junior manager from upstairs watched her work with faint disdain. "You really think you're running the place now?" Lena turned her head slowly. No, I'm keeping it from collapsing, like I always have. He blinked, said nothing, walked away. In the afternoon, she found herself alone in the staff kitchen. The microwave beeped. The light above the sink flickered. She pulled a chair from the corner and sat unfolding a foil-wrapped peanut butter sandwich. 2 dishwashers walked in and hushed when they saw her. One of them, a young woman with nervous eyes, glanced at Lena's badge. They really gave you a title. Lena nodded, chewing slowly. Must be nice, having friends in high places. Lena stood and threw away her wrapper. Friends don't watch you mop vomit from bathroom tiles at 1 a.m. She left before they could respond. Later that evening, in a meeting room typically reserved for wine distributors and marketing reps, Marshall sat across from the executive committee. They wore suits and frowns in equal measure. One of our janitors is now a supervisor. Yes, Marshall said calmly. She's been with us for 7 years. Lowest absentee rate in the company. No formal complaints. Multiple undocumented contributions to floor safety and sanitation protocols. She even redesigned the hazard flag placement last year, reduced our liability claims by 14. A pause. We didn't know that. Because none of you asked. You only look at resumes. She made things better while invisible. That changes now. Howard, the CFO, leaned forward. We're not running a charity. If we open the door to promotions like this, we create precedent, and precedent becomes policy. Marshall folded his hands. So be it. Another pause. The room shifted. Her ex-husband, someone said. There was an incident. We're assisting with legal protections. I've assigned my personal counsel. The air thinned. Is this personal? Marshall held their eyes. It's just, and long overdue. The meeting adjourned with silent, reluctant nods, but Marshall knew the war had begun. Not with Lena, but with the system they'd all accepted. A system that rewarded pedigree over grit presentation, over perseverance. Back downstairs, Lena reviewed the night checklist. Her phone buzzed. A message from her eldest daughter. Mommy Ellie coughed but fell asleep after soup. Thanks for the heater. Lena closed her eyes. The space she'd rented, still temporary, was warmer now. Clean. Safe. Her girls shared a mattress but had separate blankets. It wasn't a dream, but it wasn't a nightmare anymore either. That night, before heading out, she walked past the old janitor's closet. Her name had been scrubbed from the old shift board, replaced by an intern's. But inside, taped to the inside of the door, was a sticky note she'd left herself years ago. Don't vanish. Not completely. She peeled it off and pocketed it. In the corner of the lounge, Ray finally spoke to her. His voice was low. You're not one of us anymore. I never was, Lena replied. I just acted like it. You think this company cares now? I think I care. That's enough for today. He didn't answer. In her new office, really just a repurposed supply room with a desk, she noticed a file drawer with a faded label. Archived staff logs. 2009-2014. Inside, tucked between papers, was a time card. No name, just an ID number. Every week marked with perfect attendance. The paper smelled of dust and disinfectant. No one would remember who it belonged to. But Lena did. She slipped the card back inside and whispered to no one. I see you. Marshall parked outside Building 8A on Bryson Street just after dusk. The neighborhood had no street signs anymore. What used to be tidy hedges and porch lights was now overgrowth and shattered bulbs. He stayed inside the vehicle, watching through the windshield as the tenants moved like shadows behind smudged curtains. No one lingered outside. Even the dogs barked less here. The apartment Lena and her daughters lived in had one working window. Behind it, the flicker of a TV danced on pale walls. No furniture beyond the mattress. A child's coat hung by a single nail in the drywall. Marshall adjusted his cufflink and exhaled. He wasn't sure what he had expected. Some miraculous recovery, immediate transformation. But poverty didn't lift like a curtain. It crept out slowly, piece by piece, like smoke leaving a ruined room. He called his assistant. "Shelby, I need the landlord for 8A Bryson located. I want to make an offer on the entire building. Quietly." "Sir, I'm not buying it for a write-off. I want it renovated. If tenants have children, we'll offer relocation options during repairs. Use the foundation's housing wing to cover costs. I'll reach out to the legal team. Do it tonight." He ended the call and started the engine, leaving before Lena saw him. The next day, Lena's shift began early. She arrived before most of the lights were on, clipboard in hand, already adjusting vendor schedules and reviewing janitorial supplies. On her desk was a plain envelope. Inside was a single sentence, typed and centered. "Your building's lease has been covered for 1 year. Renovations will begin in March. Your unit is first. No media. No attention." She looked around, expecting someone to burst in to explain it was a mistake. But the room stayed silent. Later that afternoon, she confronted Marshall in the hall near the wine cellar. He was reviewing delivery invoices, but she could tell he'd been waiting for her. "I didn't ask for charity. It's not charity, it's logistics. The building is condemned. I had the reports pulled. And the rent, a holding measure. You're not the only one living there with children. You're just the only one I knew." Lena crossed her arms. "I still feel watched. Only by systems that expect you to fail. I'm trying to break that. I don't want to owe you." "Then don't. Do what you've been doing. Show up, endure, lead." She studied him for a moment, her breath shallow. "I'm not sure I trust it yet." "That's fair." She walked away. In the following weeks, whispers swelled. Staff from other branches began reaching out. A prep cook asked Lena how she'd gone from janitor to supervisor. A dishwasher left a thank you note on her locker. He'd been granted a hardship leave after 6 months of being ignored. The ripple was forming. But it wasn't all welcome. At a management roundtable, Amelia spoke in clipped tones. "We have concerns. HR is being flooded with requests for reviews, wage reconsiderations, and transfers to facilities." Marshall didn't look up. "That's not a crisis. That's momentum." "But it's unsustainable. If we legitimize one promotion like this, we'll trigger a reevaluation of the whole system. Then reevaluate it. Are you prepared for what that might mean? I was born in a shelter behind a textile plant in West Jersey. You think this scares me?" Silence fell over the room. Later that night, Lena waited for the bus with her daughters. They had spent the day at the public library. Her oldest carried a children's chapter book under her arm. Her youngest hummed softly, inhaler clipped to her backpack like a charm. When they stepped off near Bryson Street, they found a construction sign taped to the front gate, "Renovations pending." No evictions scheduled. Lena stared at it for a long time. Back in their unit, the girls played quietly, while Lena opened her closet. At the back was a shoebox. Inside were rent receipts, job rejections, and one folded pink slip from her old retail job. She pulled out a card, a birthday card. No return address, just handwriting. "Keep going. You're more than the world sees." She had no idea who sent it 2 years ago. But tonight, it felt closer. She taped it to the inside of the cabinet. Outside for the first time in months, the street felt softer. Not safe. Not yet. But on the cusp of something different. Maybe even possible. The conference room smelled like old cologne and fresher resentment. Marshall stood at the head of the long table hands, resting on the polished walnut surface. The lights above cast halos on the glossy finish, warping the reflections of the faces around him. Directors, division leads, legal advisors. No one spoke first. A quarterly review had turned into something else. Something tense. Howard, the CFO, finally leaned back in his chair, tossing down a stapled report. "We have a problem, Marshal." "What kind?" "One that wears a janitor's badge and now has a key to the executive elevator." A few chuckles rippled around the table. Nervous clipped. Marshall didn't flinch. "That elevator opens for contribution no couture. She's drawing attention. There's talk. She asked for ergonomic mops for the night staff, which reduced the number of slip reports by half last month." Howard raised his hands in mock surrender. "It's not about her results. It's about how fast this is moving. You give one cleaner a title and a desk, and suddenly the entire mid-level staff wants to know why they're still invisible. Then maybe they should ask, loudly. The optics marshal. A board has obligations, stakeholders. This isn't a mentorship program." Marshall's jaw tightened. This is a restaurant empire that made its name on fine experiences while treating the people who clean the floors like shadows. That ends now. I don't care if it rattles a few martini glasses. The room turned quiet again. On the 12th floor, Lena sat in her office, which still smelled faintly of ammonia. She had brought in a second-hand desk lamp, a photo of her daughters taped to its base. Her inbox was full. Vendors rescheduling inventory conflicts, a report about non-compliant safety signage. She clicked through them with methodical calm. But she wasn't oblivious. 2 colleagues had stopped speaking to her. The catering manager made a point of accidentally leaving her off-group emails. At lunch, no one sat near her. She'd traded invisibility for hostility. That afternoon, she walked into the staff lounge with a clipboard and a box of sealed inhalers. "These are for employees with respiratory conditions. HR approved a special stock room. No paperwork required. Just take one if you need it." A cook raised an eyebrow. "You bribing us now?" Lena looked him square in the eye. "No. I just don't think coughing your lungs out should be the cost of minimum wage." He said nothing, but his hand twitched toward the box. Later that night, her daughter Ellie woke, coughing hard. Lena sat beside her on the mattress, rubbing her back, holding her upright until the wheezing slowed. Her other daughter stirred, half awake. "Mum, will we move again?" "I hope not, sweet pea." "Not this time." "Why does that man at your job keep calling? Which one? The one with the deep voice. He sounds mean." Lena forced a smile. "He's just scared of changes. People sometimes are." Ellie lay back down, eyes still wide. "You're not scared." "A little. But I've been scared before. This is different." In the days that followed, she found small signs of thaw. Someone held the door for her. Someone else left a sticky note that read, "Good call on the mop handles. Back doesn't hurt as much. Progress, she thought, doesn't shout. It whispers." At the week's end, Marshall called her to his office. "Heard you're making waves." "I'm just doing what the job asks. Maybe more." "Exactly." He handed her a thin folder. Inside was a proposal draft. Title Wellness Integration for Janitorial Staff. Pilot program. "It's yours now. Build it. Name it." Lena blinked. "Why me?" "Because you don't see this as innovation. You see it as survival. That's the kind of vision we need." She held the folder loosely, like it might vanish. "I'll try." Marshall nodded. "No, you'll execute." Back in her office, she laid the folder beside the old sticky note she'd taken from her janitor closet weeks ago. "Don't vanish." Not completely. The same phrase played again in her mind. Now she was here, present, not framed in anyone else's silence. She opened her laptop and began drafting the new plan. Outside, thunder rolled low over the city. It didn't bring fear anymore, only change. The office light flickered once, an old ballast overdue for replacement. Lena sat at her desk, fingers poised over the keyboard. Her screen displayed the third revision of the janitorial wellness proposal. She had added 2 appendices, one for ergonomic assessments, one for mental health check-ins. She wasn't sure anyone would read them, but that wasn't the point. A knock came, quick, uncertain. It was Ellis, one of the younger floor leads. "Hey, do you have a minute?" Lena closed her laptop slowly. "Sure." He stepped in eyes on the tile. "I heard about your plan, the wellness thing. I just wanted to say, I think it's good, what you're doing, even if people don't say it out loud." She nodded. "Thank you. I mean, I used to think, this place wouldn't change, that none of us would ever matter." Lena tilted her head. "And now?" He exhaled. "I don't know. Maybe I believe you'll make them look. At least once." She offered a small smile. "That's enough to start with." After he left, she pulled open the bottom drawer of her desk. Inside, nestled between old maintenance logs, was a laminated photo, an old team picture from 6 years ago. 15 faces. Only 3 still worked there. Her name had been left off the caption. She picked up a pen and wrote it in by hand. Lena Moretti. Night crew upstairs in the executive wing, Marshall paced. The backlash had escalated. Howard circulated a memo questioning boundary overreaches within the operations chain. A group of middle managers signed an anonymous complaint questioning Lena's rapid promotion and undefined scope. One sentence repeated in bold, "How do we explain this to our stakeholders?" Marshall summoned Amelia and legal. "You've seen the memo? We have. It's being framed as a procedural irregularity. It's cowardice, dressed up as process. Sir, this could be escalated to a board-level inquiry if not addressed properly. They're suggesting favoritism." Marshall turned toward the window, the skyline stretching beyond his reflection. 10 years ago, this company built a mentorship fund for culinary interns. You remember that? Yes. First recipient was an intern from a correctional re-entry program. Second was a line cook who couldn't afford shoes without holes. Both now run regional kitchens. Did we face backlash? Then Amelia nodded slowly. We did. But not like this. Why not? Because they weren't janitors. They were chefs. There was glamour to it. Marshall turned. Lena doesn't need glamour. She just needs justice. That night he typed a reply to the complaint. It wasn't defensive. It was a declaration. Let this serve as precedent. Contributions will no longer be evaluated by title, pedigree, or appearance. Impact is the new metric. And if that makes some of you uncomfortable, then we are no longer the same company. He signed it, sent it, filed a copy to the archives himself. Downstairs, Lena exited the building alone. Her girls were already at home with her neighbor Mrs. Alcott, who had agreed to help until Lena's schedule stabilized. The streets shimmered from a recent rain. She pulled her coat tighter. Halfway to the bus stop, she noticed a man leaning against the pole. Her stomach clenched. Steve, her ex. He looked thinner, angrier, the kind of look that came with long binges and long debts. Heard you got yourself a little raise. Fancy title and all. Steve, not tonight. So now you're too good to talk to me. You gave up that right when you left bruises instead of apologies. He stepped closer. I just want what's fair. Fair was 10 years of work while you disappeared into a bottle. I want money. No. He reached out to grab her sleeve. She didn't flinch. This time she stood firm. Back off. A car pulled up beside them. Marshall rolled down the passenger window. Is there a problem? Steve's hand dropped. His eyes widened, uncertain. Just catching up with an old friend. Then move along. She's not interested. Steve slunk away, muttering under his breath. Lena got in without a word. You followed me? No, I was just passing by. She gave him a sideways glance, skeptical. He shrugged. It's a long city, with short nights. Silence filled the car as they drove. She broke it. He'll be back. We'll file another injunction. Stronger this time. I'll have my security review your block. I don't want my kids growing up with people in suits at our door. Then we'll be subtle. But we won't be passive. Lena turned to the window. Sometimes I think I'm still in the closet with the mop. Just now, with better lighting. He's not the darkness anymore. He's just a shadow. They fade. She looked at him, truly looked, for the first time. And you? What are you? Marshall answered without turning. An architect, maybe. Of mistakes I'm trying to rebuild into something else. When he dropped her off, she didn't say thank you, but she lingered before walking up the steps. That was enough. Inside, her daughters slept under a new blanket, one she bought just days before. The heater hummed. A drawing taped to the fridge showed a stick-figure woman holding a mop and a cape. The caption read, "My mom is a super cleaner." Lena stared at it, then opened her laptop. She renamed the wellness proposal. New title, the Super Cleaner Initiative. The boardroom was colder than usual, both in temperature and in tone. Marshall entered last, deliberately late, his suit darker than the others, his expression unreadable. On the projector screen at the front of the room, someone had cued a slide titled Operational Risk Assessment, Unauthorized Advancement Structures. Lena's name was on the third line. He took a seat. No greetings, no coffee offered. Howard, already standing, clicked his laser pointer. This is not personal, Marshall. This is procedural. We are being asked to assess the sustainability of new internal appointments, specifically those made without full executive committee consensus. It's not an unauthorized advancement. It's overdue recognition. The staff wellness pilot you approved under Lena Moretti's name has exceeded its budget forecast. Vendor costs have increased by 17. We've received 3 formal complaints from legacy clients about delivery delays linked to cleaning schedule reassignments. Marshall leaned back. And guest complaints about restroom cleanliness have dropped by 60. Slips and falls are down by 43. Employee turnover in maintenance has been cut in half. Howard's jaw tightened. We are asking for a pause, a reversion, even if temporary, to former protocols. No reversion, no pause. If the board insists, I'll resign my role and dissolve my equity. Gasps broke the air like glass. Amelia, who had remained quiet, shifted slightly. Marshall, he turned toward her. Let me be clear. This is the line. We've built a company on pretending to value the invisible. Lena made it visible. Now you're all scrambling to put the curtain back up. The meeting ended, not with a vote, but with silence. Back downstairs, Lena stood in front of a locked supply cabinet. Her keycard no longer worked. She tried again. Nothing. A maintenance manager approached, holding a clipboard with her name circled. There's been a reset on all access credentials. Didn't you get the memo? No, I didn't. Sorry, I'm just following what Ops sent over. Lena walked back to her office. The email was waiting. System-wide reset. Badge errors. Will be resolved within 72 hours. She wasn't naive. This was a message. That afternoon, Marshall visited her directly. No assistant. No warning. I'm sorry, he said. I wasn't fast enough. Someone's already moving files out of the wellness stockroom. We'll put them back. Just give me until Friday. And if they fire me, they won't. not without bringing the roof down on themselves. I've submitted the program under the Grant Foundation now. They can't delete what's been endowed externally. She stared at him. You made my plan untouchable. I made sure they had to fight a public charity if they wanted to undo you. Lena didn't know what to say, so she opened her drawer, pulled out a laminated folder, and handed it to him. This wasn't a resignation letter. It was a blueprint, a 12-month rollout schedule for the Super Cleaner initiative, broken down by location, staff tier, and equipment cycle. Marshall flipped through it. You wrote all this. I stayed late. They said you were just a janitor. I was. That's how I learned the blueprint. He closed the folder. I want you to train 5 regional leads. Pick them yourself. You'll be the director of the rollout. Sounds like more enemies. Or more shadows stepping forward. She allowed herself a smile. The next morning, the badge worked again. Not just for her office, for every floor. The supply cabinet reopened. The wellness locker was relabeled Employee Care by Initiative Grant. Her daughters met her in the break room that afternoon. School holiday. They drew on whiteboards while she revised vendor lists. Marshall passed by once and waved. One of the girls whispered, "Is that the man who helped us move?" Lena nodded. Why doesn't he smile? Because he's still building something. The girl thought for a moment. Like you. Lena looked down at her hands. Exactly like me. Later that evening, after the girls were asleep, she took out an old envelope. Inside was the eviction notice from 2 years prior. Crumpled. Torn. She set it alight in the kitchen sink, watching it curl and vanish. From her living room window, the skyline blinked with life. The restaurant tower among them, its rooftop sign glowing softly. Sterling Heights. She whispered into the room, not to anyone in particular. It used to feel like a place I didn't belong. But not anymore. In the weeks that followed, something unexpected happened. Staff at other Sterling Heights locations began sending Lena messages. Some were cautious, anonymous notes slipped into the feedback box outside her temporary office. Others were emails with subject lines like, "Do you actually read these? Or is this real?" A prep cook from Queens asked if his brother, a maintenance worker with PTSD, could access wellness resources too. A pastry assistant from Hartford sent photos of her broken work shoes and wrote, "Do I qualify for the grant, or do I need to mop a floor first?" Lena answered every message, one by one. No fanfare. She began hosting informal Zoom meetings on Sundays. No slides, no agenda. Just a quiet space where staff could ask questions, share injuries, swap stories. She called them Clean Corners, and by the 3rd session, nearly 50 people had joined. The HR department tried to step in, suggested formal oversight, even offered to streamline her communication process through approved channels. Lena declined. You want to manage the voices of people we've ignored for years. We want to help maintain structure. It was structure that made us disappear in the first place. Meanwhile, Marshall took his own risks. He requested a company-wide town hall, first one in 4 years. The board pushed back, said it wasn't needed, that employees wouldn't engage. He held it anyway. The auditorium buzzed. Janitors, cooks, hosts, servers, even a few IT staff took seats in rows of faded burgundy cushions. Some crossed their arms, others whispered. Lena stood near the back, flanked by 2 wellness volunteers she had trained herself. Marshall stepped up to the podium and looked out at the sea of skeptical faces. I want to begin with an apology. Silence. We've spent too long believing value only rises from the top, that greatness wears badges and job titles. But every successful meal in this company has been served on floors someone else cleaned. Murmurs passed through the rows. I didn't see it clearly until recently, because I wasn't looking, but someone made me look, made me uncomfortable. That's how I knew it mattered. He turned, slightly locking eyes with Lena. This company is restructuring not from the top down, but from the floor up, with new programs, funded protections, and recognition systems that will outlive all of us. He paused. I know change scares some of you. It scares me too. But I'd rather stand in fear than sit in denial. A round of applause started near the back, then another. It wasn't thunderous, but it didn't need to be. After the town hall, Marshall found Lena in the hallway outside the green room. Her expression was unreadable. You went off script, she said. It felt necessary. You name-dropped me without permission. I'll take the reprimand. Lena crossed her arms. They won't let this go quietly. They'll shift tactics, start using silence again. Then we'll keep naming it. Keep pulling the curtain back. She studied him. What happens when you're not here anymore? When this is no longer your company? He held her gaze. It won't need to be mine. It'll be yours. Theirs. In the weeks that followed, the Super Cleaner initiative launched at 2 more sites. Lena's team grew to 9. The wellness room was expanded to include a maternity corner and a grief resource library. But then an internal audit memo leaked. A paragraph buried deep inside referenced questionable reclassification of funds to support fringe staff perks and suggested returning to legacy roles to restore fiscal discipline. Lena received the memo late at night. Her daughters were already asleep. She read it twice, then 3 times. Not again, she thought. The next morning she didn't go to her office. She went to the boardroom. Alone. She placed the memo copy on the center of the table and waited. One by one the directors trickled in. None expected her. Sorry, this room is for executive staff. I am executive staff. Facilities division. You can check with your secretary. Howard entered last. Lena. This isn't protocol. Then make new protocol. I'm here to address this. She tapped the paper. The phrasing here doesn't just insult me. It dismisses everyone who's held this company together when your spreadsheets couldn't. Silence. If funding hygiene programs for people who clean your mess is a fringe perk, then you've forgotten what business we're in. No one moved. You don't need to like me. You don't even have to agree with me. But you will not erase me. She turned to leave. Howard's voice came soft. We're reviewing language. You're reviewing power. Just say it. The door closed behind her. That night, a new sticky note appeared in her office. This one wasn't hers. It read, "Keep pulling threads, the whole curtain's unraveling." The Monday following the leaked memo, Lena arrived to find the glass panel outside her office had been replaced. The old label, Facilities Assistant Supervisor, was gone. In its place, Director of Workplace Integrity, interim. She didn't ask who had ordered it. But when she opened her inbox, there was a single message from Marshall with no subject line. Just keep building. Let the dust fall where it must. She stared at it for a long moment, then closed the email and rolled up her sleeves. That afternoon, she entered a meeting with the Vendor Partnership Committee. It was her first time sitting at the long rectangular table instead of standing beside the coffee service. As she presented a revised supply proposal, including sustainable disinfectants, adjustable equipment for disabled workers, and monthly mental health stipends, 2 department heads exchanged tight glances. One of them, a man in pressed slacks and polished loafers, interrupted. This all sounds noble, but it's hard to see how this aligns with our bottom-line obligations. Are we in the business of cleaning or in the business of feelings? Lena didn't smile. We're in the business of people, And clean people don't stay clean if we don't make space for their lives to fit into our flaws. He leaned back, unimpressed. And what's next? Therapy dogs, meditation rooms? Lena paused. Not bad ideas, but no. Next is quiet rooms for grief. Because I lost a team member last year to a silent breakdown that no one noticed. He mopped 3 banquet halls with a fever and left a resignation note on a paper towel. The room stilled. Are you suggesting we're responsible for that? No. I'm saying we're complicit when we pretend we're not. The vote on the supply proposal passed narrowly, 5-4. Outside the meeting, a young staffer named Monique caught up to her in the elevator lobby. I wanted to say, that thing you said, about grief rooms, that matters. I lost my mum last winter. Never said anything because, well, who listens? Lena nodded. I do. Monique hesitated. Some of the old-timers think you're making this place soft. Lena looked down the corridor, where the old custodial shift wall still hung the nameplates stripped years ago. The last one faded almost beyond recognition. Soft isn't the problem. Cruelty disguised as efficiency is. Later that evening, Marshall stood in the observation balcony of Sterling Heights' flagship dining room. Through the glass, he watched as Lena moved among the new cleaning crew members she'd trained. 5 of them different ages and backgrounds, each one in a branded jacket that read Operations Integrity Team. He barely noticed when Amelia stepped up beside him. She's winning over the floor, he nodded. The floor matters more than the ceiling. We've had to open 3 new HR inboxes to handle the praise mail. A good problem. Am I correct in assuming the interim label on her new title is your doing? No, that was the board. They're trying to temper the optics. Am I also correct in assuming you already drafted her permanent promotion terms? Marshall smiled slightly. They're in my safe, along with a copy of the original company charter. Amelia watched him closely. And when do you plan to step down? Soon. But not until the structure is so sound they can't knock it down just to silence a mop. Down on the floor, Lena walked past the reception desk. A woman approached her in a tailored suit. Are you the director? Lena hesitated. Yes. How can I help? My father worked here. Back in the 90s. He used to clean floors, too. Said it never mattered. That no one cared. She reached into her purse and pulled out an old Sterling Heights badge. Bent scratched the name barely visible Arthur G. This belonged to him. Lena took it gently. He mattered, even if no one said it back then. The woman's eyes welled. He'd have liked you. That night, Lena taped the badge inside the employee break room, just above the new training roster. No plaque, no announcement. Just there. The next morning, she found her office had been rearranged. A small wooden box sat on her desk. Inside was a brass nameplate. Lena Moretti, Director Integrity and Operations. Permanent underneath, it was a handwritten note. No more interim. The floor is yours. M. It began as a whisper, an anonymous post on a restaurant worker forum, titled, The Janitor Who Changed the Menu. No details, no names, just a story about a woman who used to carry leftovers home in plastic clamshells, and now carried entire policies on her back. Within a week, that story had been shared over 30,000 times. The next Monday, a camera crew waited outside the rear entrance of Sterling Heights. Lena spotted them before entering and ducked behind a catering truck. She texted Marshall. They're outside. Who talked? He replied simply, Not me. Maybe the walls are talking now. Amelia met Lena at the side door and ushered her in through the freight hallway. They've been calling since Thursday. Local national. Even a docu-series team out of Seattle. I didn't sign up for this. They're saying you represent a shift, They're not wrong. Lena looked down at her hands, still calloused despite the title, still cracked at the knuckles from years of bleach and winter wind. I'm not the shift. I'm just someone who didn't sit down. The company declined all interview requests, citing internal reflection and active policy reformation. But word spread. Former employees began sending messages, some with gratitude, others with sorrow. One message came anonymously from a name Lena didn't recognize. You found the door and kept it open. I left this company 8 years ago with nothing, but seeing your story makes me think maybe I left too early. Or maybe I just wasn't loud enough. She printed it and taped it inside the supply closet door, the same door where her own note had once lived. It felt right. But progress always comes with pushback. At the following board meeting, Howard delivered news in a brittle tone. One of our luxury partners in Chicago has suspended their upcoming event. They cited recent press surrounding organizational upheaval. They mean Lena Marshall replied. Howard didn't answer. Send them a thank you card. We don't serve silence here. Lena, sitting in as guest speaker, glanced around the room. The board's eyes didn't meet hers. She spoke anyway. I know I make you uncomfortable. That's not my failure. It's the company's reflection. And you have two choices. Polish the mirror or smash it. Later that week, a new policy launched, voice hours. Monthly, every Sterling Heights employee, regardless of title, would be given time on the clock to submit feedback, propose ideas or report concerns, anonymously or openly. The program was mocked online by some industry insiders as performative activism. But inside the company, something shifted. A dishwasher proposed a tray redesign that reduced breakage. A maintenance tech suggested a nightlight policy for overnight staff. Change wasn't loud, but it was steady. Lena spent more evenings in her office now, sipping coffee with oat milk, reviewing shift reports and staff emails. The wellness wall had expanded to include childcare vouchers, bus pass requests, and even poetry scribbled on napkins by tired line cooks. She found one from Ellis the floor lid, who once doubted her. Sometimes I still hear the voices that say I'm small, but now they have to compete with yours. She kept that one in her wallet. Marshall, meanwhile, prepared his transition. He invited Lena to dinner at a quiet bistro he used to frequent in his early years, back before acquisitions, before private equity, before legacy contracts. They sat in a back corner, no cameras, no press, just two people who used to live in different worlds. I'm stepping down in 3 weeks, he said between bites. Who's taking over? A new CEO. Clean record, not from inside. She's sharp. Does she know this isn't just a restaurant group anymore? She does, and she's read every memo you've written. Twice. Lena sipped her water. Are you afraid? Marshall nodded. Every day. But not for the company, for what gets forgotten in silence. I've seen too many names vanish without a trace, too many closets without notes. Some of us left traces, she said. You did more than that. You rewrote the ledger. As they left, he handed her a small envelope. Open it later. Not tonight. That night, her daughters were asleep before she got home. She sat at the kitchen table, the envelope in her hands. Inside was a card. For the rooms that never had doors. Thank you for building them anyway. Beneath it a single key, not to the restaurant, to a space on the 3rd floor of an old city building long unused. Inside, she would find what was once a janitor's locker room, now hers to renovate. For what? For whatever came next. 2 years later, the 3rd floor of the old city building had been transformed. What was once a mildewed locker room was now a warm, wood-paneled space with exposed brick and bookshelves lining the walls. In one corner, a kettle whistled gently, In another, a corkboard overflowed with letters, handwritten, typed, even drawings by children. A small plaque beside the door read, "The Integrity Room." In honor of the invisible. Every week, Lena arrived early. She restocked the tea, rotated the books, cleaned the baseboards herself. It wasn't required. No one asked her to do it. But it was hers, built not with money, but with persistence, with years of silent effort suddenly made audible. This particular morning, she sat on the window bench with a notebook. Rain tapped gently against the pane, and the city hummed in the distance. A knock came. It was Monique, now a floor supervisor, holding 2 paper cups. "You know you don't have to keep this place spotless anymore, right?" "I know. But habits die slowly." She accepted the coffee. "You see the new article?" "Which one?" "New York Times. The janitor who changed company culture. You're officially viral again." Lena chuckled softly. "That makes me want to mop something out of spite." "Too late. You're a legend now." They sipped in silence. The building had become a quiet hub, a kind of gravity well for those who had been passed over, shut out, overlooked. It wasn't just for Sterling Heights staff anymore. Cooks from other restaurants came in. Delivery drivers left notes. HR officers seeking answers dropped by unannounced and just listened. On one wall, a shadow box displayed Lena's old ID badge. The photo was crooked, her name barely visible beneath the glare. Beside it, pinned under glass, was the first sticky note she ever wrote herself, "Don't vanish." Not completely. Below that was a second note, Marshall's handwriting. She didn't. She built the room instead. She hadn't seen him in over 6 months. After his resignation, he'd left the city quietly. Reports said he was somewhere in Vermont, working with a non-profit on community housing. He hadn't called. She hadn't asked him to. They had both said enough. That afternoon, Lena returned home just after 4. Her daughters were sprawled across the living room floor, surrounded by homework and snack wrappers. The walls had art now. The light fixtures were all working. A new rug stretched across the once cold tile. "You're late," one daughter muttered, chewing on a pencil. "You're growing," Lena said. "That's not an answer. But it's the truth." She watched them for a moment, 2 versions of herself at different points in time. Once fragile, now rooted. Later that night, as she folded laundry in the hallway, she caught sight of her reflection in the window. Older, stronger, still wearing worn-in shoes. She tapped a voice memo app on her phone. Note to self. Keep the welcome bench near the door. Make sure new hires know it's for them, even if they never sit. Especially if they never sit. She saved it, then deleted it. She didn't need to keep reminders anymore. The room was built, and the silence, it had learned to speak. Outside the window, dusk thickened like ink on parchment. The streetlights clicked on one by one, their glow casting soft shadows across the sidewalk, where someone somewhere was still walking home in silence. In a world that glorifies titles, we sometimes forget the ones who keep the lights on the floor, clean the air still breathable. They pass through unnoticed until one of them refuses to disappear. Lena didn't change the world by shouting. She did it by staying, by enduring, by naming the things no one else dared to name. And perhaps that's the real lesson. That visibility isn't granted, it's built, sometimes in janitors' closets, sometimes in back offices, always with quiet courage. Perhaps tonight silence isn't empty. Perhaps it's just waiting for a name to be called. Where are you listening to this story from? Like, share, and subscribe to Fanciko Stories to follow future stories that honor the unseen, the unheard, and the unbreakable.